Welcome to Am I the Bleep?
So for those of you that don't know, welcome to Am I the Bleep? We're your hosts, Dr. John, and I'm Jonathan, although sometimes John calls me Johnny, but we're the Jonathans, and we're here to stay. And we love podcasts anyway.
That's
But
pretty good.
I just made it up.
Wow.
So
Now I want Fruity Pebbles, though.
is that a Fruity Pebbles thing?
It is.
Damn. I need
Yeah.
to brush up on my Flintstone cereal history.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was talking so recently. My girlfriend's name is Cassandra, and there's been this thing since we've started doing this Am I the Bleep podcast, Am I the Bleep on TikTok, where Cassandra and I will just be talking about stuff, and she'll just say, "But am I the asshole?" And we're just having a conversation between her and I, and she's just like, "Am I the asshole though? Are you the asshole? Am I the asshole? Are you the bleep, Jonathan? Are you gonna sing me a jingle about it now?" And I'm like, "Well, if you keep going down this road, you're definitely the bleep." But I'm not gonna say that. That's wrong, right? That's not the right way to go. What do you think?
And I think it's interesting about the psychology of am I the asshole? Because if you were to walk into almost any situation, even the situations where you're not really the asshole, people kind of want to say, "Yeah, you're kind of the asshole a little bit." And I think that that's an interesting thought to have when going into this podcast, because we're reading these, and not everyone here is at fault. But we do have a little tiny voice in us that said, "Well, you are posting about it, so."
Yeah, it's this weird thing. And I think too, when you read it, it says, "Am I the asshole?" You have your frontal cortex going. You're trying to decipher whether or not they're the asshole. But in life, if somebody comes to you and says, "Am I the asshole?" though, your gut reaction is just like, "Yeah, you are."
Yeah, we just
Obviously.
like just a setup for an opportunity to call someone an asshole to their face.
And you gave it to me, and I'm going to give it back to you in spades every single time.
100%. Yeah,
It's the
that's
right thing to
true.
do. Or is it? Am I the asshole?
Have you done any assholery this week?
Have I done any assholery this week? Well, so Cassandra got home and she auditioned to be on the Netflix show The Bear. Not Netflix, Disney Plus or Amazon
Okay,
Prime, one of those.
sure.
It's about like being, it's about a chef in Chicago who left his Michelin star restaurant to then run his brother's Chicago beef house. And he tries to upgrade how this restaurant is run, doing brigade style with chef and sous chef and all that. And at
Shit.
first, everyone hates him, but then it
Mm.
turns into an operation. And there's a lot of stuff going on. But what's cool about the show is, according to my brother and Cassandra, who are both chefs, they say actually it's pretty accurate about like compared to the kitchen lifestyle. So after
Wow.
she had that audition, and it was not really an audition for the show, but rather some like subscription scheme trying to rope her in to like do headshots every month for $30. Right after that, we were gonna make kofta, which is this Middle Eastern ground beef with cumin and garlic, parsley.
Mm.
And Cassandra's hands hurt, so she said, "All right, Jonathan, you got to do the mixing and you got to do the rolling of the kofta." And it basically looks like little like ground beef logs. It's like something straight. It looks like it's out of Emperor's New Groove, like in that scene
Okay,
with Yzma and Kronk eating. Oh
sure.
no, my spinach puffs.
Okay.
But I started making them, and she's like, "No, you need to be better than that."
Oh
I'm like,
no.
I'm like, challenge. I'm like really trying to like roll the kofta, really trying to do a good job and make my ancestors proud. Like I'm Moroccan. I have an Egyptian stepmom. You think I would be good at the Middle Eastern ground beef?
Mm.
But man, it's I can't get a good log. It doesn't happen. And she's just like, "You need to be better than that." And I keep trying to roll these logs. We have like 5 pounds of ground beef. We have the podcast we have to get
Oh.
recording. I'm just like, I'm trying the best I can. And she's like,
I
"You are the worst." And I'm like, "Am I the asshole?"
the vision, the image of your girlfriend yelling at you in your kitchen to get a better log is so ingrained in my mind now that I think by merit of how funny that situation is, I don't think you're the asshole.
Thanks. That's all I needed. Now let's move on to the content that everyone signed up for. I got my validation. I don't need anything else. Cassandra, if you can hear this, you can't. her headphones are on, but that's okay. She heard it and she knows, and I now am validated. Thank you, Dr. John.
Well, so maybe you can in turn tell me if this person is the asshole. We have a post from No Vegan Options, and they
Speaking
write,
of kafta, let's
the most vegan option available.
exactly.
This person writes, "Am I the asshole for making my brother's vegan girlfriend feel quote unquote alienated at my engagement dinner? I, a 24-year-old female, recently got engaged and had an engagement party dinner this past weekend. I am currently still receiving backlash from this and want to get some outside opinions if I was in the wrong. My fiance and I invited both of our immediate family and close friends to this dinner, which was about 30 people. The dinner was held at a nice Italian restaurant in my city. Our invites gave our guests the option to choose between a meat option and a fish option for their mains. It's important to note the only people in both mine and my fiance's family that have, I guess, food restrictions are my dad and stepmom, as they're pescatarian. But a lot of people in our family love seafood, so the fish option was chosen more than the meat option. My younger brother, who's 20 years old, contacted me about a week before the dinner to RSVP and ask if he can bring a plus one, his new girlfriend. He chose meat option. Now, my brother dates around a lot and is always bringing new girls around, so I wasn't aware that he was even in a relationship. I told him sure, and that I'd have an extra seat for her. Night of the dinner comes, everyone is having a good time. I met my brother's new girlfriend. She seemed very sweet. When it came time to eat, she pulled one of the waiters aside and loudly asked him, "Is there any vegan options?" The waiter looked confused and said, "We have a fish and a meat option for the mains. I can offer you a salad and some roasted potato and other veggies as a substitute if you wish." Brother's girlfriend started getting mouthy with him and said, "Well, what if I don't want a salad, huh? You just assume because I'm vegan I only eat salads? What if I want some pasta? What kind of restaurant is this? This is discrimination." My brother started trying to calm her down, but she started going off on me, saying, "How why would you pick a restaurant that doesn't have vegan options? Many people are vegan nowadays. It makes me feel alienated that you couldn't even think to accommodate me." I explained to her that the only people that have food restrictions here are pescatarians, so that's what I considered when I chose the restaurant. I didn't even know she was coming until a week ago. The reservation had been booked a month ago. She started saying it's embarrassing on my part that I can't accommodate all my guests and called me small minded. I told her, "Sorry, I didn't think to accommodate you. I'll consider that in the future. Hopefully, you'll be around long enough for me to be able to do so." She ended up leaving. My brother walked out with her and has been messaging me that I should apologize to her because I embarrassed her in front of everyone. I told him she embarrassed herself. My mom's also been on my case to apologize, to be the bigger person and keep the peace. Am I the asshole for making her feel alienated? Jonathan, is this girl an asshole for making her brother's girlfriend maybe
You did great.
feel
Nice
alienated?
work.
Crushed it. 10 out of 10.
15 out of 10.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So I'm going to start off with say that I have bias coming into this
Mm,
because, as we say in every episode, somehow I'm allergic to peanuts, nuts, fish, beans, seeds, mustard. And I've literally gone to family events where they're like, well, we don't have anything for you. We'll make you a fresh pot of rice if you're willing to take the risk. And I'm like, yeah, what am I going to do? I'll eat the white rice, no problem. And that just has to be okay. And I'm still risking death every single time I eat the white rice. And in
hmm
this case, there's no physic uh, imminent risk to herself. Now, that has nothing to go against like veganism or anything like that. I know lots of vegans. There's nothing wrong with that sort of mentality. But coming into an engagement party, and as we see with many of these Am I the Asshole posts, it's like it's not your party, it's their party, and you're basically crashing the party. You're like, "Hey, I just started dating your brother. Is it cool if I come to your engagement party next week?" That sentence should end with, "By the way, I'm vegan. Should I eat before?" Like, I know I'm sort of jumping in on this, and that's cool. She goes to the venue, says, "Well, like, do you have any vegan options?" And the restaurant offers her potatoes and a salad, and she already puts up her guns saying, not real guns, everybody, like fake guns, like her metaphorical anxiety fight a bear guns, where she says, what if I don't want to eat a salad, huh? Because not all vegans should just be eating salad all the time. And of course, there's so many creative vegan options. The girlfriend we were telling you about, Cassandra, she works at a crazy vegan bakery, and the stuff they make there, it's wild that it looks like that and it tastes like. I can't try a lot of it, but I had a croissant, and my god, was that a good croissant. No butter, no eggs, no anything. It's wild.
Amazing.
Amazing. And here she was given an option, showed up last minute, and it's like, you're alienating me and making a scene at the restaurant when she
Mm.
was making the scene. So to answer the question, and I feel like I haven't been so direct in some of our other episodes, I'm like, well, maybe it's a 4, maybe it's a 5 on the scale of assholery, where
Right.
1 is obviously,
You're
like you're a
fine.
perfect person, 10 is
You're good.
vehicular manslaughter.
Right.
Here I'm like, oh, maybe it's a 3, 4, like they could try better. Um, Here I would say the original poster is not at all an asshole. Think about how that scene was making everyone else feel at his engagement party, and he wasn't rude. He just said, hey, like,
Her.
there are
She.
options here. Like, we didn't
Mhm.
know you were even coming. Here's why I made the decision. Like, how can I help you,
Mm.
basically? And she's like, and walks away. And in that moment, there's maybe that was the best decision for her. Maybe she was like on the brink of a meltdown, and maybe that's like no food being available for her has been a whole thing. But here she wasn't willing to, parlay. Here she like walked in with a bit of a like the
Mm.
guns up and caused problems with the groom to be. And that's at least taboo. So I would say original poster is not at all an asshole. I'd put them at around a 2 or a 3, and I'll call it a 2. And the reason being, it would have been better if he took her aside to have that conversation.
She. The original poster is a lady.
I need to get better at this.
It's okay.
I will be better. Everyone, I'm gonna be better at this. Um, the original poster could have taken that girlfriend aside and said,
Mm-hmm.
hey, like, and had that whole conversation. But
Mm.
instead, it seems like it was in front of a lot of people, and that
Right.
could have had, implications on the gun size. That would have been my perfect situation, but I don't think she did anything wrong. Like, it's her day. She did the best she could, and it didn't work out this time, and she chose to cause a scene. But what do you
Mm-hmm.
think?
I think that I agree with you. To get the boring answer out of the way, you're not an asshole. Good for you. 1.5 out of 10 because you maybe said something a little bit catty when you didn't need to, but whatever. You were reasonably upset. I think the more interesting question, and I think our listeners should know, we read these things with a principle we call positive intent, where assume we take at face value what this person is saying to be true. There's a very real chance that it wasn't as bombastic or rude as the OP is telling us, but it doesn't matter because what matters is that this is how the OP interpreted the events. This is how she remembers it. Um, and the impact of that is that given that this is probably in the worst light how this person acted, how did OP react? Did they act by booting this person out? No. Did they act by shouting her out? No. Did they start a whole like mean dialogue about veganism displacing their anger at like the whole idea of it? Nothing like that. So what do you want? What do you want? You are in a situation where someone is being very rude to you at your event and you handle it with as much grace as you can. um I think that it's challenging that this is probably what vegans are stereotyped as. Meanwhile, every vegan I've met in real life has actually been incredibly chill about the fact that they
So
don't
chill.
eat animal products, they're not all of, and maybe they'll bring it up casually as conversation. That stereotype is a little bit real in my experience, but they've never been rude about it. They'll be like, there's nothing here for me, that's okay, whatever. um and that is, it's a shame that this person might give the impression to people that vegans are anything, for the most part, anything but that. So I think that the person's not an asshole, long story short. But I think also it's important to remember that everyone interprets events differently and everyone remembers things differently. I'd be very interested to hear how this girl, the vegan person, would recall events. I wonder if it would look very differently. Um, but regardless, I think there's a certain amount of tact that was missing here, no matter how you slice things.
I totally agree. But one thing I also want to put down is I feel like, and this might again be my own bias, sometimes when I'm scrolling through these stories and I see somebody putting their foot down or setting like again like
Boundaries.
being firm boundaries, being
Mm.
directive and saying this is what I need in this moment, we often automatically assume that they're the bad person in a way, in a shape or a form, for not just like going along. Like in this moment she could have been, oh yeah, like
Mm.
we're gonna order in something really special for you, instead of just saying like what she did in this case, which is, hey, like this is the situation, this is what happened, and this is what's available. And we often look at that as being um, not perfect, but it's totally okay to be a person who says, yeah, like this is what they like, this is what it is. That's firm. Like I'm not trying to start any beef here or anything like that. There's really, really, um,
I'm not trying to
yeah.
start any beef.
I'm glad you caught on. I was,
It's good.
yeah.
It's funny.
I feel like we're gonna start doing with my puns what we used to do with segues, where we're like, oh yeah, guys,
How
it's a
many
segue coming up.
how
Yeah.
many puns can we fit in the next 5 minutes?
Yeah, into our kafta. But
Mm.
yeah, I think it's really important that it's okay to say, like, to be unhappy with a situation and to also, in that moment, carry yourself in a positive way. All of the stuff aside, all of my visceral judgment aside, if I was coaching this original poster, the first thing I would do is give kudos that on her engagement party night, she was able to deal with this situation in more than a reasonable way.
Oh yeah.
And that was a great job. And I'm curious, and I'm hoping, if the brother keeps on dating that girlfriend, that there will be like a good conversation to be had where they can sort of, hey, for next time, it's really important that I have this there. Is that possible? Or however that needs to happen. But I think that's the play. That's where to from here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agreed. Agreed for
Speaking of
sure.
segues that are really,
Yeah.
really bad,
Mm-hmm.
really, really distactful, is that the word?
Distactful?
It's got to be untactful,
Untact. I think untactful. I don't know.
distactful,
How do
distactful.
you dismount from what you're doing right now into the next post?
By moving on to the next post,
Oh, good.
which is here. I'll read the long one so you don't have to do two long ones in a row.
Oh, that's very sweet.
I'm a good boy. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. More validation, please. More
How many
validation.
how many times do you think you could get away with calling yourself a good boy on this podcast before we get emails?
See, you said good boy, and that's all I heard.
Oh no.
Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Am I the asshole for moving out of the apartment my parents bought for me after they made me let my brother live there? They did not buy it specifically for me. I just don't know how to phrase it better.
Hmm.
When I got into university, my parents purchased an apartment close to campus so that I could live my way without having to deal with other people. I'm not social and I could be best described as either a misanthropist or curmudgeonly. Curmudgeonly. It was great for 2 years, and I came out of my shell a little. I met other people like me, and I discovered that, unlike high school, university isn't hell. I even met a guy. We both work at the campus store. My little brother graduated last year and got into the same school. Rather than stay in dorms, he convinced my parents to let him move in with me. Well, they own it, so I had no say. I lasted one semester. I Since he had an off campus residence, my apartment became party central. I asked my parents to make him stop after talking to him didn't work. They said to loosen up. I think they know how to change my personality. It says Chang my personality, and I went immediately to community, but we'll keep going. Chang my personality. I talked to the university and was able to snag a rare single room in the mature student dorm. I don't have a lot of stuff, so when we went home for Christmas, I took what was really important to me. My boyfriend, first one ever by the way, looks at me social now, cleaned out my room and moved my stuff to student housing for me. When we drove back after New Year's, I dropped off my brother and then went to my new place. It isn't perfect, but it isn't sweet. But it is pretty sweet. It is pretty sweet. My parents called me and asked where I was. My brother had let them know I wasn't in the apartment. I told them where I was and why I was there. They were upset that they spent all that money to help me and that I did not appreciate it. I said I did, until they stuck me with my brother. Without me, there he is, having a blast. Good for him. He's also missing a lot of classes and has been fined for noise complaints by the condo board, but that's not my problem. My parents are asking me to please move back in because my brother is in danger of being put on academic probation. I asked if I was allowed to bar him from having parties and stuff. He was part of the conversation and was upset that I was asking to be put in charge of him. My parents said he was allowed some freedom and that as his big sister, I should look out for him and not let him fail. I'm good at words today. I thanked him for the opportunity but declined, and he recently had a party that the cops had to shut down. My parents are considering selling the apartment, but it's kind of a crappy market right now, I guess. I feel bad that they might lose money after doing something so awesome for me, and I feel bad that my idiot brother might have to take some time off school to calm down. But I don't think I'm the asshole. They all do, though. So, Dr. John Rom,
Mm,
are they the asshole?
mm.
Yeah, think about that one. Let
Do
it
you remember? Do you remember moving out to university? What that was like?
I do remember what it was like. But
Did you
before we get into the nitty gritty here, I need you to describe the word curmudgeonly.
curmudgeonly? It's like someone who's very old man grumpy-ish.
Like the
Not,
guy from, like the grandpa from Up.
yeah, that is a great example of a curmudgeon.
Curmudgeon.
And for this, I'm guessing fairly young woman to call herself a misanthropist or curmudgeon. It's charming, but in a worrying sort of way. Um uh I remember moving out to university and being just inundated with offers to go to parties and to, just
Yep.
be social. And that lasted for 2 weeks. And then I was like, actually, I think I hate this part of being in college because parties are fun until they're not, right? And if you're not the type of person who likes parties, which I very much relate to this person, then having a party forced upon you, no matter what the circumstances, is pretty um what's the word I'm looking for? Galling? No, it's just intense. It's an intense negative experience. So what I would say is that this person is reacting in the way that she feels makes lets everyone technically be happy. The younger brother gets the apartment, win for him. The parents have one of their kids living in the apartment that they purchased. Good for them. That's what they were going for, clearly. And she gets to have her own space and can be, alone with her boyfriend. So is this person being an asshole by taking care of themselves and setting boundaries? No, this is another one of those. I would go so far as to say one, because there was a lot of opportunity to act like an asshole here, and you ended up just being like, all right, I'm removing myself from the situation so that I can be happy and everyone else can be happy, and it sucks that I'm losing this apartment, but I'll live. That, in my humble
Mm-hmm.
opinion, is the older sister taking care of her younger brother in an indirect way. She's saying, you clearly want this space. I want my own space. I'm an adult. You're becoming an adult. I'm just going to leave and then you can figure this out. The issue is being totally caused by the brother. In my read of this is that the brother is causing the havoc that is going to lead to problems overall for everyone. Is it right for this girl to have left the apartment in the first place? Is it what she deserves? I don't know. It's hard to decide what people quote unquote deserve. Deserve is, it's the justice that we feel should be in the world, but everyone has a different sense of that. But is she acting in a way that is respectful to everyone involved and taking care of herself? Absolutely.
I totally agree with you, which I hate saying. I hate it more than most things. But
Yes. Yes, let it burn. Let it
finally,
let it let it make you curl up in a ball and hate yourself in turn.
the only things like we can control are how we feel and what we do. And in this case, the original poster found a good spot, started, blossoming socially, started doing a really, really good job. And her brother comes in and does like the whole party animal, what's, I don't know, some Zac Efron movie like montage of debauchery where they're just going through all this stuff. And then she's left to have to figure that out. And now she could have been like, what's the name of the sister in Phineas and Ferb?
This was after my time, but I
No, no.
I have no idea. I know she tells on the brother a
Yeah,
lot. Like that's
exactly.
the whole that's
It's
the
like,
whole bit.
Mom,
Yeah,
Phineas and
something
Ferb
like
are
that.
building a roller coaster again. And like, she could have done the same thing with the brother saying, oh, yeah, like, that condo you bought for us to have like a good university life? Well, he's fucking it up and he's like ruining it and everything's wrong. But instead, she said, I don't feel good here. I'm going to go see how I can be resourceful and find a different plan. And she found a dorm in the mature student, section of campus. She gets to hang out and do her own thing. The brother gets the condo. He's obviously going through some learning curves as well.
Mm.
And technically, everything is good. I'd be interested to hear specifically what the parents are worried about. Are they looking for her to be in, like the big sister role, kind of, parenting the brother while they're living on campus? Is that the goal of it? Like, is it that they got her something and they feel she's ungrateful for moving out? But I agree with you. It's a one. There's no asshole behavior here. They took care of themselves. They didn't do anything wrong to anybody else, and they went to find a place where they could be happy and functional, which I think for, we don't know how old they are, but we're assuming, like maybe second, third year university is
Sure.
really, really mature. I was 20 in third year university. I can guarantee you I would not have behaved this way if one of my siblings came in to live in my apartment and did everything different. My brother was even living with me for 3 months recently, and I'm 29 years old.
Mm-hmm.
There were some times I was not even like this, and I'm way older. So, way to
Yeah.
go, original poster.
Yeah, for sure. And so I'm curious, do you think that she would be doing the right thing by having a heart to heart with the brother as an attempt to not necessarily placate the parents, but just do right by the brother even more so than she already has and just be like, listen, like I understand that this is how you do things and I'm not telling you what to do, but I also don't think you want to be put on probation and kicked out of this apartment. So, what is it that I can do to help you? That would be a very sweet thing to do. But do you think she has that responsibility at all? Or do you think it's just completely optional and it would be a very sweet thing to do?
I think it would just be a sweet thing to do. I think
Mm-hmm.
you think of, the sibling relationship and you're like, oh, it'd be like you'd want it. But her only responsibilities to herself, she didn't do anything wrong and she doesn't like owe the brother anything. Could she do that? Yeah, like her relationship with her brother is their choice. And
Mm,
later on, it could be the brother was like, "Why weren't you looking out for me? You couldn't see that I was struggling there," or something like that. And maybe that's something to explore. So again, it would be the nice thing. It would be like the most preventative, like ultimate thing to do. But I think the original poster, um, both underscore AD7165, did an amazing job. When I grow up, I want to be like them.
and I also think that there's a something to be said about consequences, and that is actually the ultimate lesson of leaving the home is consequences, is that your actions do actually have consequences in the real world. And if you get yourself kicked out of school, and if you get yourself kicked out of an apartment, I'm not saying you're irredeemable or you shouldn't get a second chance, but bad things will happen if you do that, and it's no one's responsibility to save you from that, not even if they're related to you. It's your responsibility to stop yourself from, acting that way, or just learn the lesson when the inevitable happens.
Yeah, I say this a lot when working with adults and we're talking about like that same behavior but in
Mm.
children. And when you see a kid having a tantrum and like they hit you or something, the best response is to say, "Ow, that hurts. I'm going to stop playing with you." And as we grow up and become adults and we get more developed and our social circle gets more complex, our behaviors are the same, but it's just more complex. Things
Yeah.
around those behaviors is weirder. And here we have the brother who's sort of like lashing out and doing his own thing, and it's not working for her. And she's just saying, "Yeah, I'm not going to play with you if you're going to be like this." And I think that's totally golden.
Yeah.
Very, very good.
Speaking of
Curmudgeon.
curmudgeon, I'm using this golden opportunity
Nice, nice.
to
Psh,
go to the next one, which is a poster, possible underscore has, asking, "Am I the asshole for telling my mom she violated my privacy for going through my suitcase?" I, who is I am 30 years old, they don't specify gender, came to my hometown for a birthday party. On the night before I flew back, I went out with some friends. I came home to find my suitcase empty. I mildly panicked because my flight was early the next morning. I asked my mom about it, and she was washing the clothes. It was late, like close to midnight, and they were still drying, and she washed my cashmere sweater, which I only dry clean. I was noticeably irritated. I kept asking where my stuff was and was getting anxious about not knowing if everything was accounted for. I felt bad after I calmed down. I told my mom that while the gesture was nice, I don't want her going through my things without asking. She started crying and told me to hang out with my dad since I never get mad at him. I felt like I ruined our last night together and that I should have just kept my mouth shut. Am I the asshole? There is an edit later, but we'll get to that. I'm gonna pose this to Johnny. What do you think?
So actually, it's interesting. These posts are very different, but there's a lot of similarities between them, which is putting down your foot and saying something that you need to be happy in a relationship. And it could be that the other person, in this case, you know, mom, she was saw that some, child came home from um like came into the hometown for a birthday party, did the laundry, and like did all of the stuff, which is just a super nice thing to do. I know that if I came home from a long time of traveling or went somewhere, somebody just said, "Here's all of your clean clothes," I would be super stoked about that. But in this case, for this original poster, for
In the
possible
suitcase.
underscore has, yes, very nice.
Yeah.
It crossed a line for them,
Mm.
and they did a good job by communicating with it about it, and they actually did a good job communicating about it. They said, um, "I told my mom that while the gesture was nice, I don't want her going through my things without asking." There's no name calling. There's no aggressive behavior as such. It's just saying what you need for next time. And the mom started crying, and they feel guilty because their mom cried. Now, we don't know if there's a past history. Maybe the reason that they moved out in the first place is because the mom and the original poster had, a rough relationship, and the dad and them was totally cool. And maybe that's something we want to dig into a bit. But I think the original poster just said what they needed for next time. They waited till after they were anxious to have the conversation. I felt bad. After I calmed down, I told my mom that while the gesture was nice, so on and so forth, that takes a lot of maturity. Like, we're in our 30s. Sometimes I get anxious and just blurt out my feelings regardless. I don't have the wherewithal sometimes to wait. I have a lot of respect for people who can just say, "Oh, that really hurts." But I'm going to wait till I've cooled down to have an adult conversation. Like, wow, like that's wild to me. Um, so I think there's a guilt stick this person is holding around. And in a coaching conversation with them,
Mm,
maybe we'll find out a bit more from the edit. I want to understand sort of why there's that guilt, but I don't think saying what you need is wrong. I think we all have to do that a lot more. Hopefully it doesn't result in a super anxious situation where your cashmere sweater has been through the wash instead of dry cleaning. Like, that's a nightmare. I've never even worn cashmere, but I can't even imagine the implications. Um, but you shouldn't keep your mouth shut when you have feelings. That's
yeah.
important, especially with your family. So I think they did a good thing. Are they the asshole? I don't think they're the asshole at all. I think they're also a one because they even spoke about it after they calmed down. They think they're a 10 for making their mom cry, and that's an interesting thing. And that's
Hmm.
actually something we see a lot in coaching, where somebody's like doing the thing and everybody on the outside thinks they're doing like kick-ass job. They're just doing all the right things. They have the good job. They're nice to everybody. They're at every party. They're having fun with their friends. They have like the best girlfriend. They're doing all this stuff, but on the inside they hate themselves and they think
Yeah.
that they're doing everything wrong, and that's problematic. So I would love to work with possible underscore has, and I love to meet them. I'd love to see their
I
business card and like know the truth.
I agree. I think they have very mature coping mechanisms. I think that also the challenge is that the internal critic that people have is usually very much formed by their parents and how their parents
Mm-hmm.
criticize them and how their parents regard them. And so it just makes a lot of sense to me. There's some continuity here, is that if your mom thinks you're being completely unfair and instantly goes to an ultimatum of, well, then just get out, go away, reject me so that you can go be with your dad. um I think you're going to internalize some of that over time, and it doesn't matter if you're 30 or 17 or 70. I think you're going to have that kind of reaction. And I'll read the edit. And thanks for the feedback. They write, yes, she has done things like this before. Now that I reflect, I don't think she ever gave me a healthy amount of privacy. I moved out when I was 17 and I don't see her a lot. So it just felt really bad to make her cry, especially since doing a chore for someone could be seen as motherly. But I now see I was manipulated. Why does it seem that so many mothers from that generation are neurotic? So many of you in the comments have had similar experiences. So I think it's, and I try to be empathetic to someone who is of the generation of being in their 40s, 50s, 60s right now, and maybe listening to this podcast and being like, we're not all like that. No, of course, not everyone from any generation is like anything at all. But it has become more in vogue than it ever has before to discuss feelings, to count to 10, to maybe calm down, and then later have a conversation about how you're feeling, as opposed to saying the first thing that comes to your mind, first thought, best thought, and maybe making your child feel bad for something that maybe wasn't a very thoughtful thing overall for you to do. So it's funny because you're always talking about how you relate to situations, or like how you're biased. I'm very biased. My mom would absolutely do this exact thing, and I would say that I would do this exact thing. I honestly, I think I'd have the same reaction as a poster. I'd be very irritated. I'd calm down so I don't say something to my sweet mother that I would regret, And then I would explain to her why what she did wasn't the best thing. And she would probably react not dissimilarly to the OPs. And I know that that feeling is difficult, but you can't control other people and how other people react to things. Just like your mom can't control you, OP. They can't control how you feel about things. They can't control how you react to things. And it's better to talk about stuff than to not talk about stuff. So it's a good thing that you brought it up. I don't think you're an asshole. I think you're at a 1 out of 10 scenario. But, and here's the but, because there was a but.
Appropriate,
There was
appropriate.
a but coming this whole time. People can do bad things with good intentions. People can make harm even when they are trying to do good. And that is actually a much better place to start from than someone trying to do harm and succeeding in doing harm. Your mom arguably tried to do a nice thing in the way that she knew how, and that is a good place to start from than rather than your mom trying to ignore you or hurt you or hate you. And so all I want to do is reframe the situation is that your mom did a nice thing badly, and that is not the worst thing in the world. It is just worth discussing in a mature way. And if she's not ready to have that conversation, then that's just how it's going to be. But you don't have to stifle your emotions or feel differently about a thing that upsets you. That's it.
Yeah, I love that. I think there's an important topic to be had here, and I think we'll touch on it today. Is that this whole idea of boundaries is a very, very hot topic now.
Oh, yeah.
And it's important, but it's not a perfect concept because you have to kind of take it a step back before setting the boundary of like, no, mom, like, don't wash my clothes. Like, when I come home, like, I need to do this. This is what's important for me. What's the relationship you have with your mom? In this edit, they're talking about like, oh, I guess it could be seen as motherly. You're 30 years old. Like, you obviously, that's not important to you at this point. What's
Mm-hmm.
important for you? You saw her crying and that really upset you. Would you like to have a better relationship with your mom? What would that look like? Does it revolve around laundry and her, living like the old school stereotypical motherly life for you? Or would you rather sit down and have a glass of wine and talk about stuff? Or is it like, hey, like, let's just listen to like some of our favorite albums together? And sometimes when we put boundaries, we're actually creating space that we haven't yet defined what we want of that situation yet.
Mm-hmm.
And not that the original poster here did that necessarily. I just think it's important. Sometimes you have to have, hard stops and be firm. Absolutely. That's a very important thing and a muscle we should all flex a lot more. But just as an extra, sometimes it's about, especially with a parent like this, and I have a similar but wildly different situation where it's about like, okay, like my mom sometimes does wacky stuff. And instead of like tuning into that, the choice I have for the relationship I have with my mom is I'd rather sit and have a beer with her or like just shoot the shit. That's a healthier relationship to have. And when we have that relationship where we're just getting to talk and be adults together instead of her being in a motherly situation and me in a child situation, a lot of the past doesn't have to continue. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
not saying that's an easy thing, but that's a conversation that I get to have without having the hard stop of a boundary by saying, what's the relationship I want to have with this person? And how do I create that? Just try it out. It's a muscle to flex. But it could be that the experience you have as a result is much better. I feel like this episode of Am I the Bleep had the most like day and night experience of me being like, I'm gonna do weird voices, but also I'm gonna be hella professional.
Yeah, yeah, and I will say this is that I it's funny because part of the lovely thing about being a professional is that at some point you're allowed to be goofy again.
You
And
must.
I can rephrase everything I just said in a very simple way. The conversation you had about your with your mom wasn't about laundry. Fun fact. It was probably about the fact that you don't visit a lot and she has troubles dealing with that. But the truth is that the reason why we say things in a professional way sometimes, and the best way to get a point across, is to walk people through where our thought processes go, which is, okay, what's happening here, what was said, what isn't being said, what's the takeaway, those kind of things. But yeah, like, it's funny to me when we sound professional, because for
It's
most of
terrible.
our lives we were saying these ideas, but we were being complete goofballs when
We
saying
were
it.
the assholes.
Yeah, we were the assholes. We developed the professional voice out of a necessity to, not not get laughed out of the room everywhere we went.
And that is
Um,
a bookend right
yeah,
there.
absolutely.
Started off the show. Aha, Cassandra and I are talking about whether or not we're the assholes. At the end of the show, plot twist, but not plot twist. We are the assholes.
Yeah, and if
Wild.
you want to listen to more goofy asshole based humor, where can you find us, Jonathan?
So we're on Spotify. We're
Yeah.
on Apple Podcasts. Although I hear that might be phased out eventually.
Ooh.
There's Google Podcasts, which might also be phased out eventually. Fun fact.
Oh, really?
Um,
We're just gonna have to like email these episodes out
yeah,
on
yeah, we're
disc,
going
on
back to
floppy
like
disk.
direct mail.
Seriously.
Yeah, with floppy disks. Exactly. And it's also on our website at thejournalthattalksback.com. If you're also interested at thejournalthattalksback.com, you have the incredible opportunity to sign up for an intake call with me where I'll be slightly less judgmental. And
Mhm.
if you're down, potentially match you with one of our fantastic coaches. We charge $200 for unlimited coaching every month. Super affordable, super great. I've been a client now since we started for a year and 4 months. And I invite you to take the plunge, the Nestea plunge with us. 90s kids will remember.
The branded plunge.
Yeah, they sponsored this video.
They did.
Um, and yeah, and we're also on TikTok. I'm posting as Am I the Bleep? Um, we're posting 3 to 5 times every single day. I'm doing a live there 4 times a week, doing exactly this, but just me. So if you want less humor and more like existential crisis, you'll enjoy that a lot. We're doing that basically Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 9:30 a.m. Although sometimes I switch it up. And
I mean,
with that,
we're also on spring.me. We're on
I tried to relieve you of having to do this, and you're
no,
just like,
we're
no.
on shut up. We're on Google Buzz, and we're on grono.net.
Grono sounds like the curmudgeon.
Grono is the curmudgeon.
Grono,
We're on curmudgeon's social parlor.
Grono
Not
feels.
parlor. Wait, no, not
What?
parlor. Just curmudgeon's social.
Grono sounds like the Muppet that was designed to teach kids to learn about no, but it turned into like something that was way too big, like that evil, like Thanos, like it had all the Infinity Stones and got too powerful.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh no, it's Grono. And then Grono is like this like 8 foot tall, really scary, like hairy, gooey thing that's like, Grono. And that's and it never got renewed, you know? It like had to turn off into like a side spin of the Muppets, you know?
Yeah, and for more Sesame Street spin-offs,
Grono,
um,
yes, grown ups with Adam Sandler. That was a thing, right?
oh God. Okay, I'm
Say your
just gonna
quote, John. Say your
yeah, okay,
quote.
so there's a quote that we say every time to grow on. It's an inspirational quote so that we can all think about it. And it's a very straightforward one. I think we can all understand it. This week it's when life gives you assholes, make lemonade.